Let me tell you a story. The year is 2025. Jeff Keighley really wants me to play Expedition 33. I tell him to go fuck himself. There aren't that many games I'm personally looking forward to. Don't confuse that with me saying there weren't that many good games that released this year, just not that many that were my cup of tea. Mortal Kombat 1 finally came to a merciful end after being drip-fed updates for over a year and wrapping up its life as the same rushed fucking mess it launched in. Being cursed to be a big fan of grown men and women touching each other in a squared ring and having to live in a universe where there's no real good alternative to the 2K series for a major release wrestling game and being expected to buy basically the same game every goddamn year, which I'm not gonna do. Pro Wrestling Sim is the shit though. Having a month where I get the massive urge to play fighting games and want to dip my toe out of the adult-sized inflatable pool I've been comfortable in called Mortal Kombat, buying a bunch of said fighting games, playing them all at once, not connecting with most of them, and then getting hooked on 2XKO for a little bit. Then crawling back to the warm, sweet embrace of Garden Warfare 2 for the millionth time when trying out new things becomes too scary, and when I get tired of getting yelled at by Eastern Europeans, I just play Burger Shop until my wrist develops carpal tunnel. If you think that sounds sad and unbelievable, it is, because I've actually been playing Burger Shop 2 more.
Yes! Hell yeah!
And a big spark this year came in the form of Sonic Racing CrossWorlds, which is good. You should play it. Made a video on it. Shameless plug, I know, but seriously, go play it now! Outside of all of that, I was waiting because most of my anticipated releases were going to come out at the end of the year, in October. Yeah, October sucked. Originally, this video was going to be titled something like My Month of Disappointment or My Month of Depression or something else dramatic and clickbaity. And I didn't know yet how much of a colossal letdown these 31 days were going to be, but then something happened which made me change the whole premise of this video, push its release back, and gave me brain rot for the rest of the year. God damn it, Jeff Keighley, get the fuck out of my house! My month of disappointment started with the release of Little Nightmares 3. Being a casual fan of the franchise, I played the first two games and grew absolutely in love with the art direction and world, leaving me with a bit of an emotional attachment to seeing these small children walking through horror landscapes and trying not to get mangled by your average Welsh citizen. So a third game releasing 4 years after the last one feels pretty exciting apart from two things. 1. Tarsier Studios, the ones behind Little Nightmares, weren't developing this one since they were bought out by Embracer Group and Bandai Namco owns the IP, so a sequel being made with a brand new developer is already a red flag. 2. That new studio was Supermassive Games, the people behind Until Dawn, The Quarry, and the Dark Pictures anthology, which for me turned this game from a potential red flag into a fucking do not interact with warning. I'm already not a massive fan of Until Dawn, and in the 10 years since its release, I still feel that it's easily Supermassive's best work. I find the Dark Pictures games to be best described as annual release horror game slop, especially Little Hope, which is one of the worst horror games I've ever seen, and even their higher profile projects like The Quarry and the casting of Frank Stone left me feeling nothing but disappointment. So you could say, I wasn't thrilled. But against my own judgment, I stayed cautiously optimistic, and it being able to be played in co-op, agreed to buy it together with a buddy of mine. Buying it on launch day, mistake number 1. Seeing the mixed reviews and still buying it, mistake number 2. What followed was us playing through repetitive level design, a lack of engaging puzzles, a lack of puzzles, little enemy variety, most feeling like reskins of ones from the previous games, and a world with levels that lack cohesion. Also, making one world a tad longer than the others doesn't make up for there being only 4 instead of 5 like the previous games, and if you expect that I have to look up external media like comics in order to fill up the holes in your story, or who the goddamn final boss is, then you didn't do a good job telling it. And our session ended with us being annoyed, disappointed, quitting halfway through the Candy Factory level, and asking for a refund. Is this game bad? No. Is this game good? No. Is this easily the weakest out of the 3 main Little Nightmares games? Absolutely. After our session, I just watched the rest of the story on YouTube, and both the rest of the game and the ending didn't convince me that I missed out on anything. And no day 1 patch or DLC chapters are gonna change that. In the end, I didn't feel that hugely upset by it because I had certain expectations from Supermassive Games, and those expectations were definitely met, and they will be coming up again later. As for Tarsier, their first new project Reanimal is up, so at least I'll have something to wash the disappointment out of my mouth. I love Plants vs. Zombies. Like a lot. The art style is charming as hell, the character designs are colorful, creative, and fun, the gameplay is simple enough that your average gamer can complete it, but can also get challenging enough that you'll want to blowtorch your local ecosystem. The first game is a straight up masterpiece and is available on basically every console, with the Game of the Year edition being $5 on Steam. Go look right now, it's there. Click it. Go on, you won't regret it. The sequel choosing to go bigger with almost everything, and succeeding for the most part, but being bogged down by being infected from head to toe with microtransactions and being trapped on your phone. The Garden Warfare games blowing little old me's brain when they released, introducing me to a concept that I never thought could work, and it works. It works so goddamn well. Being a PvZ fan around 2016, 2017 was the shit, and it felt like the only way we could go was up. But we didn't go up. We went down. PvZ Heroes came out. PvZ3 became one of the most recent examples of if it ain't broke, don't fix it, because needlessly changing shit has gotten it stuck in development hell for who knows how long now. But it's getting there. Kinda, I think. Add more microtransactions, maybe that'll fix things. And Battle for Neighborville continuing that tradition, because instead of simply expanding on the Garden Warfare formula, which proved to be successful, we're gonna change a bunch of features and modes, and 9 times out of 10 make them straight up worse. Not to even begin about the change in our direction. So with BFN underperforming and Popcap Vancouver disbanding, another beloved part of this series died off. Some of the harshest truths of the universe we have to accept is that AAA gaming is a hellscape. Hiroyuki Tagawa passed away, and we are never getting Garden Warfare 3. So after spending years of pissing down all the goodwill they had, ruining/killing every PvZ title, and after years of basically nothing but, well, nothing, we got Plants vs. Zombies Replanted, an HD remaster of the original game. An announcement that felt less like a celebration of the past and more, Jesus Christ, we fucked everything up, release the first game again and make it 4 times as expensive. So releasing a touched up HD version of an almost 17-year-old beloved classic has got to be the easiest win of their lives, right? They fucked it up. They fucked it up. They Frankensteined the console and mobile ports, upscaled the game with AI, lied about upscaling the game with AI, lied about adding original classic artwork to fluff up the extras menu, somehow broke the music, and also just broke the code of the game. But at least they added a couple of modes and local PvP from the console version. Jesus Christ, this franchise is a mess. You have the easiest slam dunk to get goodwill back imaginable, and you still mess it up. How? How? After Little Nightmares 3, I did learn my lesson this time though. Haven't bought it, and since I already own the Game of the Year edition, which again, is only $5 by the way, I don't see a reason to ever get this one. No matter how many patches they decide to drop afterwards, does not change the piss poor state they decide to release this game in, nor the half-assed job they did in making it. I feel like I could save us some time and just copy-paste the Replanted section and replace Popcap with NRS and Digital Eclipse, but I want to add a bit more detail to it than that, so bear with me. At the start of 2025, Mortal Kombat 1 had its support ended after a year and a half, starting and ending its life as a rushed, unpolished, and overpriced mess that flopped around like a fish on land pretending to be a competitive and serious game. So you could say that franchise morale was kinda low, but then the clouds parted and Ed Boon came down to bless us mere mortals with teasers to delude us, give us hope, and to ensure that everything is totally fine. The trailer for the MK movie sequel from 2021 that sucked major poop from butt, which had me sitting in a live stream with my fingers crossed constantly saying, please don't suck, please don't suck, please don't suck, which looks to actually take more inspiration from the games and be a total cheese fest, which, fuck it, I'll take it. Is it gonna be good? No, probably not, but if it's a funny action movie instead of a bland dark nothing burger like the first one, then I'll be happy. And then they delayed it. Moving it to the summer could mean they have confidence in it doing well, but WB's on fire right now, so who even knows. But wait, there's more! Announcing something that fans have asked for years now, the MK Legacy Collection, a bundle of all the versions of MK1 to 4 with a couple of handheld versions of 3D era games and the story spin-off games, with online support. On top of all that, we got behind the scenes stuff, art, interviews with creators, actors, and the thing that really tickles my balls, a complete story overview. This is the easiest slam dunk imaginable. They fucked it up! After rushing out MK1 and it not having basic features like rooms, lobbies, or crossplay, and it being mind-numbingly updated for over a year and getting backlash for it from the fanbase, the Legacy Collection launched with no rooms, lobbies, crossplay, and so much goddamn lag that my opponent has run an entire set, fallen in love, gotten married, and sent their 3 homunculus children to college before I've even been able to punch them in the dick a single time. And again, them updating the game after release changes nothing about them dumping it out in this state, and there is nowhere near the amount of incentive to stick with this game in comparison to a major release like MK1. Also really weird. You can argue it's good for preservation's sake, but who is jumping at the bit to play 4 different versions of MK3 or the GBA version of Deadly Alliance, but then they couldn't go the extra mile to get a functional version of MK Gold when that's the big one people would have wanted? My expectations are already low, and yet you still disappoint. Oh, and just to kick us while we're down, as if the year wasn't bad enough for the fanbase, we got a brand new art book compiling the classic games, and they had the audacity, the fucking audacity to upscale the art with AI. You motherfucker. I just can't win. I can't win. My franchises don't get to have nice things because the people behind them are morons. Hey, but at least Sonic is up. Let's go! So if you couldn't tell by now, and with me wasting a good couple minutes of your life, October wasn't going very well for me, but there was one game left on my wishlist to still release that I, funnily enough, didn't have big expectations for. Dispatch is made by Atomiru Studios, a newly formed studio made up of former Telltale developers, and I use newly formed loosely since they've existed since 2018. This game went through a mix of starting out as a live action series, producers joining in and dropping out, lack of funding, and the big cough, or to put it simply, good old development hell. The name Telltale should ring a bell since they're the studio that I'd say definitively represented the choose-your-own-adventure genre of games. You'll most likely have seen footage of one of their seasons of The Walking Dead, especially the first one, starring one of the best modern gaming protagonists, Lee. I don't have a lot of experience with Telltale or choose-your-own-adventure games in general outside of watching other people play them, but I remember enjoying the ones I saw. The Walking Dead, Wolf Among Us, and Tales from the Borderlands, the good one, and then Batman, which is the one I actually played both seasons of and really enjoyed. But after Telltale basically kinda sorta died or just stopped, it created a gap for the genre that hasn't really been filled by many studios, except for one that I don't like. Now enter Atomiru Studios and Dispatch. This game's launch felt like a blur. From Aaron Paul, Jesse Pinkman himself, and Laura Bailey showing up at the Game Awards and presenting a trailer for a new game made by former Telltale developers, and even being reminded of the name Telltale felt like a punch to the gut that sends you back 10 years and makes you go, oh fuck yeah, these games exist. After that, I assumed this game had marketing. I'm kinda asking because I legit didn't see any up until 2 months before it launched, and it was basically the same trailer I saw at the Game Awards, and then by chance the demo footage they showed later, and none of it really filled me with excitement. 1. It's a superhero game, and after the industry boom of the MCU, DCU, and now the DCEU, and every other big studio and streaming service trying to get a cinematic universe or superhero project off the ground, the phrase superhero fatigue has been doing the rounds for a while now, which I find to be more of a shit movies and shows fatigue. Even the other later successful ones like The Boys and Invincible came out around 2020, which then makes sense with this project being in development since 2019, but it releasing at the tail end of 2025 made it feel like it came a little late to the party. 2. It's an adult-rated superhero comedy. Superhero movies, shows, and other projects the last couple of years have mostly felt like they come in two different packages when it comes to their style of comedy. Either the I have to cram a joke or reference in every 20 seconds and try to keep everything lighthearted at the cost of everything else, or the I'm gonna put as much violence, nudity, and gore on your screen while seeing how many times I could cram the word fuck in a single sentence because I'm mature. The marketing definitely gave me the worrying impression that it was just gonna be more of the latter. 3. When you pick a cast for your project, you pick people that would properly fit the role that they need to play. This should be obvious, but it's been far too often the case that someone either for live action or voice acting is chosen not because they are the best fit for the role, but because the developers can slap a big name on the poster and marketing to get eyeballs on their stuff. Usually at the cost of the quality of the project, because you get a big name celebrity who either is not equipped to handle the role or straight up doesn't give a shit. Dispatch uses celebrity casting as well, and by celebrity casting, I mean YouTubers. And also artists. And Jesse Pinkman. And I want to be upfront, I like Moist Critical, I like Jacksepticeye, but they would not be my first choice when I'm looking for people to lend their voices to a professional project I'm working on. On top of that, you have bigger celebrities like Jeffrey Wright, who admittedly is really fucking cool, and like I mentioned before, Jesse Breaking Bad. For me, all of this was kind of a red flag, because no matter how much I like some of these people, I'd like my characters to be voiced by experienced voice actors. But the character designs, art style, and animation looked really good. Much better than most of Telltale's output was, and the voice acting mostly sounded solid apart from pointing at the screen whenever the Bat Guy spoke. So I listed it into the cautiously aware folder, also known as the Steam wishlist, and went on with my life. Then October arrives, and after a month of disappointment and 3 consecutive sloppy shits, I needed a solid. Saw Dispatch was releasing, said fuck it, and bit the bullet. And yeah, I really like this game. I was already aware of Telltale's business model of releasing a season, usually being 5 lengthy episodes that seemed to release whenever they were able to get them finished. For stuff like Batman, this was about an episode a month, but for others it could be multiple months in between episodes, and that shit is just complete ass from butt. Dispatch takes a more serialized TV approach where the episodes are done, technically, since they were apparently finishing things up until the last second for every weekly release, and then drip fed them on a weekly basis. 2 per week, 8 episodes in total. I didn't like this at first, but after playing the first 2 episodes, feeling a little mixed, mostly positive, but also annoyed that I had to wait for more. But a small positive is that finishing the first 2 episodes should leave you under the 2-hour refund window for Steam, so if you weren't happy with the stuff you played, you could absolutely choose not to want to wait for the rest to release and ask for a refund. But again, feeling mostly content, and after already asking for 1 refund, skipping a game and just saying fuck it and keeping 1, I went against refunding and decided to sit with my slightly disappointed feeling and wait a week for more. And I'm very happy I did. Dispatch follows Mechaman, or Robert Robertson III, voiced by Aaron Paul of Jesse Breaking Bad fame, who is to the city of Los Angeles what Batman is to Gotham, but after being duped into a trap by the edgy villain who murdered his father, his suit is destroyed. Afterwards, he's approached by a literal blonde goddess to use his experience to help dispatch their rookie heroes, and in the meantime they will repair his suit and get him back to his former glory. The gameplay is split up in 3 ways. The choose your own adventure options, where you have several choices that will change the story and relationships based on what you picked and guide Robert down several endings. Where you succeed or fail as a mentor, be a hero, anti-hero, or Joe Schmo, and which of the 2 romance options you picked, or neither of them, or both like a total whore. There's usually only about 3 or 4 choices per episode that can actually have a big impact and change something about the story, and then the majority of your choices are more minor ones where you end up saying the same thing in 4 different ways. It's a fair criticism that even though there are different routes, the changes mostly consist of one character being different in cutscenes or having 1 or 2 different conversations per episode. And other than that, you're playing the same story until you get to the endings, even though I like the story. QuickTime events, where succeeding in certain sections actually helps improve your progress and makes Robert not look like a total moron who gets their ass handed to him the entire story, but you also have plenty of pointless ones that make me question if I'm actually even playing a video game. I don't know about you, but I don't feel engaged by pressing right so someone swipes their phone up or to make them pull up the zipper on their suit. And the developers seem to have this somewhat in mind because you can just turn them off, which makes a lot of the game's experience you sitting there watching a cutscene waiting until you get to the dispatching sections. Speaking of, the dispatching sections are the real meat of the game, periodically having assignments pop up and having to figure out which of your colorful cast of moronic Suicide Squad rejects to send to and successfully get the mission done. You have to be mindful of their stats, leveling them up, where to spend your skill points, unlocking their new abilities, pairing them up with their buddy to get better synergy, and making sure they don't get hurt. Sometimes a type of mission will pop up, like where someone's Japanese imported toilet has turned into the shit equivalent of Mount Fuji, and guess who gets to fix it? You do. Because Robert is also a hacker man, you get to move a sphere along a line, type in multiple variations of the Konami code, and dodge evil red balls within the time limit or total amount of lives. Or you can choose not to have consequences and just turn that shit off as well. It feels like these segments were made to vary up the gameplay more, but I find them to be annoying and try to avoid them as much as possible. This creates a gameplay loop that's easy enough to pick up, but can get challenging enough if you don't pay attention to how you build up your roster. I find this to be a lot more engaging than the walk-around sections where you pick up stuff so your character can go, interesting, and then put it back down, and you don't lose out on character interaction since there's plenty during the dispatching.
Jesse, stop touching my balls! I can't, Mr. White, it feels good, bitch!
I want to start with the main character himself, Robert Robertson III, aka Mechaman, aka literally me. He's going into the folder. I apologize, Aaron Paul. I was not familiar with your game. I didn't think that this bald beanied cowhouse spotter would pull off a voice acting performance this good. This guy's good, like really fucking good, and I'm surprised how much I ended up liking him because the trailers gave off the impression that he was kind of a pushover. In almost every scene shown, he was getting beaten up or insulted. But in the game, he's actually really well realized. He's competent, confident, and very charismatic. There's so many scenes where someone takes a jab at him or insults him and he actually gets to respond and matches their energy really well. What I'm saying is it's nice to have a main character that has a spine. There's absolutely a level of main character syndrome where he has the perfect answer to basically any situation he's in, but he also struggles, gets beaten up, fails, and has to train and work hard to get back to his former glory. He's good, not in a basic goody two-shoes way, but in the way that he puts other people and maintaining the legacy of his suit and family over his own well-being to the point of ending up a depressed mess who lives in a shitty bare-bones apartment and has basically no social life. He inherits millions from his dad and spends all of it on maintaining his insanely sophisticated suit just to keep his hero work going. His body is absolutely scarred to shit, and his overweight dog sleeps on a pillow while he sleeps in a fucking plastic lawn chair. Add a sprinkle of angst and daddy issues on top of that, and you end up with a really likable main character that strikes the perfect balance between charismatic badass and sad homeless person, and he ends up being one of the best original superheroes we've gotten in years. He's like if Batman, Iron Man, and Spider-Man had a really hot, deeply voiced, depressed baby. My biggest complaint is that you don't get enough of him. Like, he's been doing this since approximately 16 years old, is seen as a legend, is respected by the other heroes in the universe, and I just want more. More scenes, more flashbacks, more of him in his prime/depression. Like, he's the main character, and I still want to see more. I want more! The supporting casts are fine and fulfill their respective roles pretty nicely. There's Royd, whose proportions are not exaggerated at all, by the way. Simone's are just built like that. He's also connected to one of the most crucial choices in the whole game, because if you're not willing to brofist another man while both of your dicks are out, you deserve to have said dick get cut off with rusty scissors and your bloodline will not continue. Because Robert's biological dad is a neglectful piece of shit, that role gets filled by Chase. Being on the Brave Brigade with Robert's dad, and again, because he was a neglectful piece of shit, Chase ended up being Robert's babysitter, which created a brotherly bond between the two. He's also voiced by Jeffrey Wright, which gives him extra points, even though 70% of his dialogue is saying fuck, and I'm pretty sure he makes up for about half of all the curses in the game. Apart from a flashback in episode 7, you don't get a lot of dialogue or scenes that builds a relationship outside of the modern day, and yet the second they meet and recognize each other in episode 2, I'm immediately sold on their relationship. The dialogue, the body language, the joking really convinced me, because this is the exact type of banter me and my friends make, and they've got some of the strongest scenes in the whole game, especially the balcony talk, which, fart joke aside, does a great job of both of them sharing their views on rehabilitation. Because while being in his 30s and only looking old because of his powers, he seems to also have a more old school approach to the Z-Team and the Phoenix program, and while he would speak up against Robert's dad, he still holds a more black and white view on heroes and villains. Being Robert's mentor figure, and no doubt being a large positive factor in his upbringing and life, but also being a doubtful voice that gets in the way of Robert actually developing a bond with the Z-Team and trying to make the Phoenix program work, makes for a good obstacle while the major villains aren't that much in play during the middle chunk of the story, and it makes it more rewarding when he eventually does come around and admits his mindset was wrong about the Z-Team and Invisigal. Speaking of heroes, or the exact opposite of that, you have the asshole Avengers, consisting of Moist Critical, Jacksepticeye, Glamazon, Murder Pigeon, Sex Appeal, Best Girl, a walking pile of shit, and a literal flaming homosexual. They're a part of an experimental program to try to redeem supervillains and turn them into functioning heroes, which they fucking suck at, so as their last hope, it's Robert's job to turn them from zeros to heroes. And they're not small fries either. Robbery, assault, murder, dozens of counts of murder, drug abuse, fucking eating people, attempted murder, attempted murder, attempted murder, attempted murder, and in the final episode, straight up terrorism. A lot rides and dies on their interactions, since their dialogue is the main thing you'll be hearing for most of the game, and has to distract you from noticing that the gameplay consists of moving PNGs around on a background. So if the humor doesn't land for you, you're not gonna have a good time. For me, it landed, most of the time, but just like with Chase, it has the issue of their dialogue feeling forced to include swears for shock, and the flow of scenes and sentences get really affected negatively by this. You don't get that much backstory-wise from any of them, apart from small casual tidbits or joke setups here and there, because there is only so much time to go around. The bar scene in episode 5 having to carry most of their bonding and team growth to really change things from tolerate these people and try to do their job well to actually liking and caring about them. From the start, I just vibed with Invisigal, Golem, and also Sonar, mostly because his design was cool, and thinking the rest were just kind of fine or straight up unlikable assholes, but eventually all of them grew on me and left me thinking, you know what? I do like these assholes. Coupe has a pretty great design, and the parts where she's vulnerable with the team are nice, but I don't find her to stand out that much amongst the rest. Same goes for Punch Up. Jack did a decent job with his voice, and his positive attitude is nice, but apart from that, most of his stuff is relegated to dick punching jokes. But at least they got a comic together to give their backstory more weight. Prism and Flambe were a hard sell. I fucking hated both of them at the start, and their interactions were the type of ones that I was worried about, where you get shit on the entire time and just have to sit there and take it. But luckily, Robert gets to clap back and even put them in their place occasionally. Prism was mostly just fine like Coupe and Punch Up until she gets her moment in the bar, which made me laugh the hardest since the filing room scene in episode 2. Flambe was the hardest sell for me, being the main asshole of the group, constantly shitting on everyone, cheating the leaderboard by putting out his own fires, and then the flashback scene where he tries to kill Robert, and then once the group has grown closer together and you decide to share your secret identity, he tries to kill Robert again. And people take that very lightly, even though if Golem hadn't stepped in, he would have fucking died. It's sort of balanced out by him regularly getting made fun of and getting his shit pushed in ever since the first episode. The game treats all of it kinda tongue-in-cheek. Yeah, he's an asshole, yeah, he's an idiot, and you laugh at him losing a tooth or his eyebrows, but with the song and the party scene, he grew on me. And it's nice seeing him change and having them work together in the finale. Malevola is, to be honest, I find her to be really overrated. Like, I get the appeal. I do. Trust me. I do. I like her personality. She's not worse than any of the others, and a tall demon lady with a giant sword, that's really fucking cool. But for how much people hype her up and want her to be a love interest, there isn't that much substance here. The two love interests are there because of how their personalities, backstory, and theme fit with Robert, but with Malevola, it's just because she's hot. It seemed like trouble enough to properly make two love interest routes, and I honestly hope that they don't add her just because. Sonar is in the same boat as the others. Charlie did a fine job, and his monotone voice surprisingly works, apart from a couple of more emotional moments where he struggles a bit. He's absolutely carried for me because of his design and powers, because otherwise he's mostly just tech bro, and he does cocaine. He's easily my favorite design on the team. The monster form is fucking cool, and his power is fun to play around with during dispatching. Golem is just great. I could end it there because I genuinely can't think of a single reason why anyone would dislike him. The worst he does is push Robert twice, and you can even assault him back, so all's fair there. Oh shit, he's 20. His whole personality is just being a total bro, and his slot fill ability in the late game is so OP, it's insane. Yeah, love this guy, he's great. Genuinely can't see a single reason why anyone would dislike him. Lastly, there's Invisigal, and I'm gonna keep this really short here because she's gonna come up in a lot of detail again later, but she's easily my favorite on the team. After either cutting Cocaine Bat or Murder Pigeon in episode 3 and getting blasted by bat ear rape or straight up porn, you get the choice to add someone to your team. Waterboy is a shy, insecure wet noodle man who you bump into in the beginning of episode 2 and gets hired as SDN's janitor. Having a mentor-mentee relationship with Robert, he has a similar dynamic as the rest of the Z team, but replaces being a giant asshole with crippling insecurity. And also being moist. And you see him grow from a stuttering mess that vomits water to actually becoming a decent hero. If you pick him, he starts out fucking useless and is a liability more than anything by assigning himself if you don't, and the game is aware of this since when completing missions, he levels fast and you can build him into a reliable support. I'm actually surprised by how popular he is, because while he is the kind of character you want to root for and help, I'm not a fan of all the wet and his mannerisms. But it's cool to see Joel Haver get more exposure. From the start of the game, the billboard, the tutorial mission, the infomercial, Phenomenon is presented as the poster boy of SDN, the perfect hero. And if you go the Blazer route, he's your direct romantic foil, since it turns out he's also dating her. From the first 2 episodes, you might get the impression that he's a total douchebag that's gonna get in your way the whole game and you'll have to compete with him. But that's not what happens, because they've already broken up in episode 3, and the next time you see him, he's a depressed mess laid flat out on a car. After having the evil Superman trope crammed down our throat for the past near decade, it's fun to see a much different approach. He's not actually a massive jerk or a condescending asshole, but an oblivious idiot. And at first sight, he feels like the obvious choice. Most of his stats are busted, he's super fast, and he can get back in action almost immediately. The downside being that if he fails a mission, he gets taken out of action much longer because of his status condition. His status condition is depression. And you know what? He's going into the folder, that's right. He spends the entire time moping around, sad because his relationship ended and has to get pushed to find something else to be passionate about. It's funny to see the subversion of the evil Superman trope in this game being depressed Superman. The main villains of the game are the Red Ring, and as cybernetically enhanced terrorist organizations go, they're fine. They show up, cause trouble, and do a little mass terrorism. They fulfill their purpose. The main enforcers being Toxic, whose dialogue makes me want to have a mute option, and Armstrong, who's as generic as they come. He has nothing really going for him, being a dime a dozen asshole who has one joke about his little arms, and for some reason, him having big robot ones makes him a big threat. Toxic is much worse, where I did not enjoy a single second of his screen time. Okay, that's not true. I like the therapy bit in the beginning before he actually shows his personality, but that's it. There isn't a single line of dialogue or joke that he makes that made me laugh. He is the most empty version of saying swears just to say them. And that it's funny that his dick is hanging out, which gets a payoff with the other guy whose whole joke is that he punches dicks. There's almost nothing more awkward than when a joke doesn't land and then they just keep going and going and going and you're just waiting for it to end. You show me all these other cool villain designs like this guy or her or this awesome fire-breathing dragon guy, and yet we get stuck with Dick Joke 1 and Dick Joke 2. The leader and main antagonist of the game is Shroud. First off, his design is really good. Good balance between being simple and also menacing. His mask allows him to predict almost any outcome and outsmart, outplan, and outmaneuver everyone he faces. Having a villain with the power of prediction for a choose-your-own-adventure game is an awesome concept, which is why I wish they executed it better. Shroud is very underutilized, basically having zero presence while Robert is out here scoring and only showing up again at the end of episode 6. Now, in episode 1, I find that they set up expectations. You get the backstory between Robert and Shroud info dumped, and they literally give him a name and a face, which then makes me think, well, it's not this guy then. Because you make such a big deal about making his design mysterious and secretive, casting Matt Mercer in the role, and yet not letting us hear him when we should be able to in the refinery, which gives me the feeling that his identity would have some sort of twist or reveal to it. But then you get to episode 7 and nope, it's that guy. He's older, but it's just that guy that they showed in episode 1. And they try to make it a reveal, but I'm sorry, you can't have a new NPC show up and talk to Robert right during an important low point scene in the story and have him come off as inconspicuous. Like, I can hear that they have Matt change his voice a bit to sound more like a generic Joe Schmo, but you could instantly clock that it was him and then know the reveal is coming. It's also underwhelming that after finishing episode 6 and you go to the deluxe edition comics, you see this barbecue issue with a young Chase and Robert's dad present, and then this random nerdy guy with a red ring-like augment sticking out of his head shows up after they mention that he created the Astral Pulse. Some beer gets onto his augment and it goes haywire and he runs off angry. Now, thankfully, there is another comic that shows more than that, but these panels just kind of blurting things out made me disappointed at the reveal before episode 7 even dropped. The final comic showing that Shroud wanted to join the Brave Brigade, but Robert's dad, still being a massive douchebag, says no, and then he proceeds to beat the ever-living shit out of him and almost kills him. Shroud still possesses Robert's father's gun, the gun he used to kill him, and there is a major inconsistency with this thing. In the game, he says he used 4 bullets to hunt him down and kill him. He then uses one on the bartender and keeps the last one to kill Robert with. But in the comic, Shroud shows up unexpectedly and shoots him once. Now, this can be chalked up to that he's lying to sound cooler and make the moment more meaningful, which could explain some of his other predictions not being entirely accurate, and it's been said in a dev interview that the comics are indeed canon, and that the discrepancies between what Shroud says and what is shown to be the truth both in the game and the comic is not something they want to clarify, which makes it very likely he's lying. His prediction powers also feel too convenient. The way the game goes about how his powers work, he doesn't feel like a smart character that can genuinely figure out and plan to overcome any situation. It feels like he gets to read the script. Obviously his predictions change depending on what choices you make, but there are instances where I'm watching scenes unfold and just sitting there thinking, how could you possibly have predicted or gotten this as a possible outcome? When he does his whole spiel during the hostage bit on the roof, I'm listening to his explanation and thinking, none of this makes any sense. The amount of contrivance and coincidence needed for this to be planned is insane and just leads me to believe he's fucking lying to demoralize the heroes and try to keep the upper hand. His powers do make it really satisfying when you give him both pulses and make him make the decision. It's a really thematically satisfying way to take him down and make his entire mindset blow up in his face. I hoped, because almost all of the Red Ring members we see are wisecracking swear machines, that Shroud would be more reserved and collected to contrast them. And he is for the most part, but there are moments where he really dips and make him come across as a joke.
Feel that, you fucking fucks?
And just like Robert, I just want to see more of him. His speech about you can't beat the bad by being good is pretty generic, but he has moments where you feel there's potential with him. About the creation of the Astral Pulse and him feeling ownership towards it, seeing as he made the thing, and Robert's dad being a complete piece of shit. His old school respect for heroes and his admiration of Blonde Blazer. Maybe a little too much admiration. There's a lot of potential, but he ends up feeling just serviceable for what he has to do, and if it wasn't for Matt Mercer voicing him, his score would drop significantly. Alright, I've danced around the big one long enough. It's time to go into the radioactive zone.
I will burn this planet down before I spend another minute living among these animals.
If you followed this game, or paid attention to the video, you'll know that the biggest discussion around it are the romance options. The fact you have 2 different paths to take with different interactions is already more effort than usual in the romance department for these games, and both options are great fits for Robert both in personality and theme. The only problem being is that with it being the main focus of the community, it puts the game as a prime target for one of the worst phenomenons in fandoms, shipping wars. I cannot describe, Power Skilling Son by the way, I cannot describe how much I fucking despise this stuff, where I get interested in the characters and world building of something, and when I check out the fan base or try to interact with other people, almost everything I see is people picking apart every small detail, exaggerating characters' actions and mistakes to a ridiculous degree, and trying to slander and murder each other. It's exhausting. And it sucks because when I first started the game and realized that there were 2 options, I was like, oh, cool, and you can follow the path and style you prefer, whether you want a more straightforward, direct, and wholesome romance or a slow burn enemies to lovers thing. Blazer is great. I mean, her introduction is literally descending down from the sky like an angel after rescuing Robert. Takes him for a drink, has great banter, flies them to a private spot, and then you put this fucking choice in front of people. Game? This is mean. This is really mean, because it's understandable for him to feel this way and interpret everything previously in a flirting context, and the whole thing makes sense with context later, but both results just kill you inside with how awkward they are. It's a messy start, but it's lighthearted enough where even if things were awkward, there's enough hints in their banter and body language that something could develop. And then the end of episode 2 happens.
Stand ready for my arrival, worm.
Right when you might think that things could get back on the right path, the story puts a big muscle Travis Willingham voiced obstacle in Robert's path, because of course the guy who's the face of the company you're invited to work for is also dating your romantic interest, cause fuck you. This had me worried that we'd have to go through the cliche romance plot of passive-aggressively butting heads with Phenomenon the whole game in order to win over Blazer, but thankfully that doesn't happen, cause she dumps his ass in the next episode, and I like the subversion a lot. And repeating myself, she's great. She's incredibly kind, selfless, and supportive, which makes you wonder, what's the downside? What's the big dramatic thing that could affect your decision making for this path or screw up everything when you get to the 3rd act low point? Well, when you choose to go on a dinner date with her, and I'm not crazy for saying this scene is exactly like Shrek, she reveals her secret. she's a brunette. Oh no, the incredibly attractive person is incredibly attractive, and possibly even more so depending on your hair color preference. I'm happy that this is the reaction to this moment and how the reveal plays out. Not to downplay the point of this scene. It's a big deal because she's incredibly insecure about people only caring about her superhero persona and that they aren't interested in the person behind it. And it works really well thematically in contrast with Robert believing that his only value in life is being mechaman and upholding his family's legacy, and you can make these two normal people who gain their powers from outside sources develop beyond their personas. And this is the path I expected to follow since episode 1, but color me surprised when I found out that Mandy isn't the only love interest, because in episode 2 you're also introduced to Invisigal. Invisigal is the complete opposite of Blazer, spying on their talk in the break room, having a ridiculous foul mouth, and eye-fucking Robert almost the entire time. Then starting the dispatching, this goes further through her gameplay. Her ability, Lone Wolf, makes it that she is literally more effective when being sent by herself, so it should be very clear what her personality's like. She spends the entire shift making dirty jokes and teasing him about his dad bod until the last mission pops up at the donut shop where you have to mandatorily send her. Cause, you know, make your own choices game. And here is where you get a closer glimpse of her more laid-back personality where she's trying to banter, and you try to help her with the robbery, which will go wrong no matter what you choose, either leaving the old guy with a bacon arm or toasted buns. On one hand, it's crap that no matter what you choose here, the end result is the same. It doesn't feel that there's that much consequence to my choices in my choice game, but in this one instance, it's kinda okay, because it's done to establish a character dynamic between her and Robert. And you get to see the difference in their perspectives on the mission. From Robert's POV, they failed to stop the burglar and an elderly man got burnt. But in the debrief later, you find out that for Courtney, things actually went better than usual, which is why she came back with a smile on her face expecting to get praised. But instead getting chewed out and ending up in a screaming match in the break room, which ends with her storming out and punching Robert in the face. And this is another moment where I really like Robert's character, because when they get into this argument, Invisigal's grasping at straws to defend herself, and he gets to shut that shit down hard. But right after she goes invisible and he thinks she's left, you can see the regret on his face. He's in the right here, but he feels bad about the way that he went about it. If you choose to say that she punched you, he'll even defend her and say that it was also partially his fault. So then when he says that he's all in on the job and will try his best, you've already seen him take that to heart before the debrief, and it feels like it's being naturally reinforced later when he's reading guidebooks on team building. Again, have I said I love this guy? Because I really fucking do. Their intros could not be more opposite, between one saving you, getting you a job, and having great banter, but with the caveat of being in a relationship with someone and then having the cliche of it not being mentioned until right before it gets revealed, and the other spying on you, shit-talking you, and punching you in the face. Funnily enough, Blazer being in a relationship was more of a turn away for me than the punch was, because if there's one thing I can't stand in stories, it's a love triangle. So I took one look at this and said, yeah, fuck no. So much so that even when they break up before the next episode even starts, it still kind of soured me a little on it. In contrast, yes, this is bad. It is. But I found all the little character moments, comments, and micro expressions with Invisigal more interesting. Pretending to keep it cool by insulting his dad bod, even though she's eye-fucking him the entire time. Coming over personally to talk about what she thought was a good job and trying to make banter. And then the donut talk in the shop where she will actually get the donut you chose earlier for you and put it on your desk. This is why I started to lean towards Invisigal. Not because of the intro to episode 4, or the sex talk, or whatever dumb bullshit people say online, but because of the donut. This little pastry on a napkin and all of these small things made me feel like there's more going on here than at first glance, and while absolutely being a bad start, if I stuck to it, it could go somewhere interesting. The funny thing is, for how much the romances dominate the conversation around this game, they aren't really that significant. Adok said they cut back on the romance because they thought that people wouldn't care that much about it. Boy, were they wrong. But that's the case. The first 3 episodes having no real difference until you get to episode 4, which is the romance episode, where you get 2 more intimate conversations with both. And by intimate, I am including the nip slip and Waterboy having the wettest shit known to man, until you choose the date you want to go on at the end. After that, you only have about 1 or 2 dialogues or altered scenes per episode and the ending kiss in episode 8. There are people that think the game focuses too much on the romance. My guy, there isn't even that much here. Have I said that I hate shipping wars? Cause God, I fucking do. I hate them so much. I just want to engage with my hyperfixations and look at fan art and talk about lore, and instead I get bombarded by cave people flinging their shit at each other and ripping out people's throats over fictional people having the sex. For a not so massive part of the game, this ends up with every single scene and interaction being compared and cross-referenced to find problems or unfair moments, when in the romance department, they get the same amount of additional dialogue and scenes. This gets to the point that people think there's a big difference in the amount of screen time between both of them, when in reality, it's almost identical, and Blazer even ends up with about 3 minutes more, because she gets the whole spotlight in the first episode, then going 50-50 for the next 3, and then taking a backseat for 5 and 6, because these are the Z-Team bonding episodes, and she isn't a part of the team, and then going back to 50-50 for the last 2. Mandy's character ends up not feeling as engaged in the overall story as Courtney, even though they have equal screen time. She gets set up as the love interest of the game in episode 1, and has a much stronger and approachable introduction than Courtney does, apart from the reveal that she's dating Phenomenon. The fact she slightly lets the kiss happen and shows interest in Robert the episode after breaking up rubbed a lot of people the wrong way and got her painted as a cheater and manipulator, which is fucking ridiculous, especially when crucial context is missing that is supplied by the comic, where you get to see that they're actually in a dead-end relationship and is already thinking of ending things before she even meets the guy. Having your partner only liking one aspect of you and feeding into your biggest insecurities when she wants to be able to have a normal life outside of superhero work, and then having Jesse Pinkman show up, who matches her both in personality and theme with their relationship to their alter egos, explains a lot about her actions. And one of the biggest mistakes Adok made was locking this scene behind not only a comic, but behind the deluxe edition of the game. Even if they didn't have any more budget to animate it, they should have at least included voice lines to indicate this more. You go to episode 3 and things get straight up weird, where for some reason it's written that her breakup influences her to want to shake things up and cut someone from the Z-Team, which is not only a really shitty thing to do to them, because cutting one of the criminals in the reform program out of absolutely nowhere probably won't end well, even when, to be fair, they've been treating it like a joke, and making Robert make this decision on his second workday after just proclaiming that he's gonna start pushing the bar and get serious with the program is a gigantic dick move and feels very out of character for what she's shown to be like in the first 2 episodes. It's said that the whole program will get scrapped if they don't see results soon, but to then drop this cut on his second workday out of nowhere feels forced and could have easily been fixed by having the board put a surprise ultimatum on her that day, where either one of them or the entire program gets cut because of a lack of results. Apart from the dress scene, Areola, it feels like her path already climaxes at episode 4 with the dinner date, which is a really good scene that has good carryover from episode 1. But after that, she gets a couple of small cute gestures and then takes a backseat until the last 2 episodes. While the game was releasing, there was this speculation that she was secretly evil, a spy, or even Shroud's daughter, and while being completely ridiculous in hindsight, I do kinda get it. Not because I wanted her to be evil or anything, but because the whole time playing her path, you're just waiting for a big scene or twist or significant character development moment to happen that defines her route. Something. Anything. Her wanting to be accepted as Mandy and her parallels with Robert's identity with Mechaman are great, but aren't strongly explored. Apart from the dinner, you have the locker room talk in episode 5, where Robert can choose his preferred persona and can make her subtitle text change to Mandy, which is a nice detail, but this doesn't really affect the game. I needed another scene like this, but serious. Not presented as a joke or a casual conversation, but taken seriously and gives both of them a chance to really talk about their identity problems and add emotional weight. Because there's so many cute little moments she has, like her talking about wanting to watch crappy love shows on the couch together, so she brings a couch with her in episode 6, so Robert has more than just his Vergil chair lying around. But that's not enough to replace an actual emotional scene. During the final dispatch shift of the game, if you're close to losing, Blazer will show up with her broken fucking stats and help you. This didn't happen to me though, because I don't suck fucking ass, which is another thing that almost all of her dispatching gameplay lines are locked behind losing during the final dispatch sequence. All of this culminates in her sacrificing her powers and her amulet to save Chase's life, which traps her as Mandy for the foreseeable future, but gives her the chance to explore her life outside of Blazer. She's an unfortunate victim of her arc fitting the game's theme, but not being a part of the Z-Team and the lack of actual romance scenes for both paths in the game means her route doesn't feel really strong. Now for Invisigal. Not only is she a big topic, she is also one of the most overhated characters I have seen in media in a while. Dispatch is a game about redemption, about people being able to escape the fate they think they're stuck with and being able to become more than they perceive they can be. From Mandy's self-doubts about her non-powered self, Chase being stuck in a Benjamin Button body, Robert being able to be more than just his family's legacy and his suit, and most obviously Z-Team transforming themselves from villains to functioning heroes, and nowhere is this illustrated more than with Courtney. Being the deuteragonist of the game, she embodies the core message. Someone who wants to change but doesn't think they can, believing it's impossible no matter how hard she tries, leading to her giving up, putting up a wall of dirty comments and jokes and pushing pushing people away. While she's on a team with people who most have committed far worse crimes than her, like dozens of murders or straight up eating people, the weight of hers gets amplified because they directly relate to Robert, being the one who put the bomb on his back in the opening. Almost killing someone makes her quit the Red Ring and decide to turn her life around. The big problem being is that she sucks at being a hero. And then when the person she almost killed and got her signing up in the first place shows up at SDN, she fucks up when trying to make a good impression with the mission, the donut, and gets chewed out for it, which pushes her even further to give up. She's the main person used to represent the Z team and the core theme of the game about if a person, even someone who believes they're fated to be bad, can change. And it's Robert's journey to help these people and to see if you're willing to help and forgive someone who did something terrible to you. She's a lot to handle, especially at first. Her personality is very closed off, putting up a front of not giving a shit about anything and making a lot of crude and sexual jokes. The game has a lot of dirty jokes, but it's a toss-up between her and Chase who makes the most, and if it's not to your taste, I can absolutely see why her character is unappealing to you. But going through the episodes, you get more and more glimpses that that isn't her real character and that she actually wants to change, and it feels incredibly rewarding fucking smashing through that wall and seeing her open up and being more vulnerable. Her journey goes through two different counters, mentor and romance. The mentor counter is decided by success and leveling her up, in order so that she feels she's capable of being a good hero. If you send her to train with Blazer, you can upgrade her lone wolf ability to become an XP booster for the other people she's on missions with, literally transforming her from a loner to a team player, as well as succeeding in the hacking missions and QTEs that directly involve her, and a handful of speech choices linked to her villainy like the one in the break room. All of these tally up points that decide whether you get the good or the bad ending. The romance counter is purely decided by speech choices, so depending on how much you reciprocate her banter and picking the movie date, and they rarely ever overlap with mentor dialogues. These also tally up points to decide whether at the end of the locker room scene she comes back to kiss Robert after walking away. Contrary to what people might think, romancing her is not required to get the good ending. It's completely possible to romance her and still get the bad ending as well. Where Blazer is a more straightforward and wholesome romance path, Invisigal's is a slower burn enemies to lovers one that is also pretty messy because of the baggage of the bomb. I don't like that people boil both of these down to she's fixing me or I'm fixing her, when in both cases it's two people with similar problems of feeling trapped by fate and their identity helping each other, and it does a disservice to their journeys in the game. Also, we're not pretending like this guy isn't depressed as shit. Look at the death in his eyes. Vizzy's path properly starts in episode 3, when after it's mentioned that someone from the team is getting cut, and with her on the bottom, she feels defeated and throws in the towel. This is where the difference maker comes in during the playground talk, where she explains her point of view, about her being fated to be a villain, that she can't be like the other top heroes in SDN, and I've seen plenty of people say that this logic doesn't make sense, and that's the whole point of the scene, because Robert literally says that her theory is bullshit and he disproves it by pointing out himself and the similarities between them, and then helps her take down the villain she failed to stop at Granny's. And you can see the first crack in her demeanor start to show, and that she actually does care, with her being bumped up and being safe from being cut, which results in one of the best cutscenes in the game.
Thanks.
Does that fucking say Big Chungus? When the next episode starts, and I just want to address this on the side, the overreaction I've seen for this opening is insane. I have to see grown adults freak out and exaggerate and scream because a game has a sex scene. It's not even a sex scene, it's an implied sex scene where it's mostly one person. I can fuck a bear, but the implication of someone being eaten out is apparently just too extreme. This dream is the catalyst for her realizing that she's got feelings for Robert, to where she tries to see if his intentions are to actually help her or if he's just trying to get in her pants, and she does this in her own bad way, giving him an up-down, making jerk-off jokes, and straight up telling him about the dream in the men's bathroom, which gets interrupted by Waterboy dropping an absolute flood in the stall. This is the romance episode, by the way. Robert can match her energy or not, and after a very confusing day, notices her being out of bounds again and looks to see she's watching a movie and can choose to join her. I'm a grown-ass man, and I'm sitting here watching this kicking my feet. This shit's adorable. I was leaning towards her 70% after the donut, 80% after the leaderboard pick, but this scene locked me in. From this point on, there is a very noticeable shift in her character and her dynamic with Robert. In the same way that he helped and advised her at the playground, she's now helping him bond with the Z team and how to become a better leader. Advising him to reveal his identity and emphasizing getting a fresh start works thematically, not just for him, but for her as well, and choosing to do so helps mentor and inspire her. The fact that he listens to her advice and is willing to take that risk with someone who literally tries to kill him after revealing it helps with her own doubts and means she could possibly do the same. Because, you know, Bomb. She'll be at the suit test regardless if you revealed your identity to the team or not, and will react in absolute awe at seeing the suit work. That her biggest mistake is getting closer to being undone, and then to see the horror on her face when it explodes and she has to repeat the worst night of her life. When Robert wakes up in the hospital, Chase will chat with him, and regardless of if you're on a romance path or not, will note that he's getting closer with her, and have the option to playfully confirm it, which will add a point to her romance route, which on the one hand is strange, since all the other ones are where she's in the scene, so it kinda leads you to the conclusion that with the point being added and her resting when you get back to the dispatch desk, yeah, she was totally invisible in the room, wasn't she? She organizes the party for him to help him with his downward spiral, and both makes and spearheads the plan to track down the astral pulse in order to fix his suit. Once they find where the astral pulse is located, Invisigal wants to retrieve it immediately, but Blazer and Chase choose to go by the book and wait the night, with Chase going on a drunken rant and getting himself punched. This scene is one of the biggest moments of misunderstanding I've seen from this game, because everything gets boiled down to black and white when there is a very important thing here called nuance, where every person in it is making the completely logical and competent choice based on their character, and no one is really in the wrong here, apart from Chase kinda drunk ranting. Blazer wants to do things by the book because of her position, and while she considers it, can't just okay a large-scale operation without warning the top brass. Chase wants to keep Robert safe after losing him for years and prevent him from ending up the same way his dad and grandfather did, also wanting to protect him from Fizzy and the Z-Team because of their criminal past and believing they're a bad influence, but his unwillingness to believe in change and redemption gets in the way and only starts to budge after everything at the party goes down, and he starts to see his mistake during their talk on the balcony. Vizzy sees it as too big of an opportunity to pass up, even in the imperfect circumstances, desperate to redeem her mistake and taking Blazer's hesitancy and wanting to plan first as a rejection, which is not helped at all by Chase's drunken ranting. Her going alone and without backup is stupid, reckless, and puts the Phoenix program at risk, but it's also the only reason that Shroud hasn't won at the end of the episode. If she doesn't go for the pulse, Shroud gets it, installs it, and the game ends. If she gives it to Robert, she does exactly what Shroud anticipates she would do, and the first thing he does is go after and torture him, but instead gets left confused because he didn't have it either. Chase choosing to save her and ending in the hospital is a terrible thing that happens, but if she hadn't gone and taken it, then the Red Ring would have won already and the game is over. No one is specifically in the wrong here, since all of them are making the most logical choices with the given information. Chase is now left in a coma, and the team has a meeting on whether or not she should get cut. This scene, hell, both episodes 7 and 8 suffer from the most writing problems in the whole game by having to cram in the third act low point, finale, and wrap up, and we don't get enough time to properly set up the team's grievances, their development with Robert, especially if you didn't share your real identity, a detail that gets almost no follow-up after getting blurted out at the party, their apparent care for and relationship with Chase, who has only had negative interactions with them, and Flambe being let back in very easily after literally trying to kill Robert. And in the case where you don't reveal your identity, he has no opinion on him being Mechaman, and there is zero resolution with that plot point. The cut in episode 3 was a bad force choice, a bad out-of-character feeling move, and something that the end of this episode shows was a mistake, because whoever you cut ends up joining Shroud, and when that choice left a bad feeling in my stomach when you're cutting someone for not caring enough at the beginning of the story, then I'm absolutely not going to cut someone for when they're trying to fix their previous mistakes, after everything they've done to help Robert in the last few episodes, and are responsible for keeping the main MacGuffin out of the hands of the villains. Cutting or not leads to Robert going down to the locker rooms to talk to her before she leaves, and you get the confession that she was the one that planted the bomb on his suit. Regardless of if you cut her or not, regardless of if you romance her or not, Robert can either forgive her, need to process things, or condemn her for it. Both in the condemn and need to process choices, she not only accepts, but expects a reaction like that from him, but when you forgive her, she reacts absolutely dumbfounded and pushes back on it because after everything, she can't believe that he could forgive her. And I absolutely forgave her. His job is to help rehabilitate villains. All of them have done terrible shit, with her having one of the least heinous criminal records out of all of them. The worst thing she's done being the bomb, which made her quit immediately after and try to redeem herself by joining the Phoenix program and spending the second half of the game trying everything to help him and make up for her mistake. Her crime being against him instead of any of the other dozens of people that have been assaulted, stolen from, or the families of the people that have been murdered shouldn't change that. It would be completely understandable for him to lash out, since you'd absolutely have a stronger reaction if something is personally done to you, but looking at it from the outside, it would be no different than the others. She'll leave, and if you've engaged enough in her romance path, she'll run back and kiss him. This scene is blown way out of proportion and is painted far worse than what it is. Throughout the game, she turns invisible in order to avoid confrontation and to leave uncomfortable situations, like she does here. Only now, right before she's about to enact her plan to stop Shroud and might not make it out alive, and if you have enough points to her romance counter, she'll come running back and make one final desperate attempt to show her feelings for Robert and see if he feels the same way. People deliberately ignore the context of this moment, the choices you had to make to get to it, and her powers being applied to a basic romance trope. The unfortunate part was that this scene could also happen before by just forgiving her initially because of a mistake in the romance point counter which got patched within a week of its release. Is this scene messy? Absolutely it is. Is it the horrible thing that people try to paint it as? Absolutely not. Now you could say that people are right to be hesitant about her, or even dismissive, since it gets revealed that she was actually planted at SDM by Shroud, and depending on your romance path that you'd fall for her, mentor her, fall for Blazer, or if you're a whore, go for both. This is the problem with episodes 7 and 8, that the clutter of having to follow your different choices and also trying to swerve you until the end catches up to the game, because albeit not explained incredibly well, it is hinted that Shroud is lying. His inconsistent account on how Robert's father died, getting Blazer's arrival and it being a decoy wrong. Hell, him leaving without even checking if the pulse was in the fucking case, and the devs talking in interviews about the difference between the comic and the game not being a mistake shows that he's not 10 steps ahead like he says. But I'm not surprised that people still talk about it because it's not handled very well. The last episode rapid fires so many scenes and dialogues at you to make you try to not trust her, but it just falls flat on its face. You're gonna ask me if I'm gonna leave her tied up or not, and if I trust that she's telling the truth about not helping Shroud, not tricking Robert, or being a spy when she insulted him the first time they met, got into a fight with him, punched him, almost quit the program, has been actively helping him connect with the Z team and trying to get back the Astral Pulse at the risk of her own life, and will reject being forgiven and not being cut from the team. The dialogue becomes needlessly vague and nobody clarifies what they're doing just to keep up this drama for the finale, and then she helps them during the final battle, fights Armstrong for the second time, the first time literally starting because she got called out for being a hero, and plants a fucking bomb on Shroud. On top of all of that, his plan has to rely on him not being able to find the pulse after the crash, Robert surviving said crash, which was a fucking miracle by the way, planting Courtney at SDN like 4 months in advance to Robert even coming back into the spotlight, and knowing that Chase would send Blazer to recruit Robert, even though Shroud's been in prison for years and he doesn't seem to know that Chase even is at SDN before the media report. That Courtney needs to make Robert mentor or fall in love with her, even though their first interactions are completely negative, and that she would do this while her augment doesn't work, which doesn't give him an advantage and would literally hinder her hero work and make it more likely for her to underperform and get kicked out of the program. This whole angle just makes zero sense and isn't that well executed as a final attempt at demoralizing the heroes. I'm sorry, Matt Mercer, but this guy is a bum. After you've given him the Astral Pulse, fake or not, Courtney will take the final bullet in Robert's dad's gun, symbolically changing Robert's destiny and giving him the opportunity to absolutely beat the shit out of Shroud or show up next to him and murk his ass, before tossing Robert the Astral Pulse and disappearing, accepting her inability to change and become a hero. I've seen plenty of frustration and confusion with this ending, since the obvious thing is that it's decided by the choices you made through the story, and thinking that making decisions where you trust or romance her would obviously lead to the hero ending. But the mentor counter, while influenced by several dialogue choices and a handful of QTEs, is actually mostly decided by the actual dispatching sections in the game. In order to have her change and believe she can be a hero, she actually has to perform well as a hero, which is mostly decided by how well you dispatched her and managed her stats. And the confusion is partially valid, since none of the other Z-teamers are affected like this in the story. There's also the problem here with the wording. The word neglect feels wrong and too specific, since again, you can actually be supportive, trusting, or even romance her and still end up with her turning heel, so maybe fail to inspire or something else would be more fitting. The weird part to me is while the devs made it easier to get this ending by raising the point total, plenty of people ended up with it, even though it's not that hard to effectively use her in the dispatching sections, or any of the Z team for that matter, especially in the late game, since your abilities and synergies take care of most assignments fairly easily, and I had to go out of my way to end up with this ending. And while it is as canon as all endings are in the game, and I do like the idea of her having a vigilante dynamic in a potential sequel with Robert and the others, it definitely feels that this isn't the intended ending. The devs have even called it a skill issue, and this is gonna sound passive aggressive, but yeah, it kinda is. Again, you don't have to romance her for her to be good. Just show basic trust and encouragement and don't suck at dispatching. In the hero ending, she saves Robert's life and gives him the opportunity to turn Shroud's face into hamburger meat. In situations like this, I ask myself, what would Spider-Man do? Okay, not that one. And yeah, I spared him, because that's what heroes do. This feels like the intended ending of the game. Just Everyone gathered at the end and celebrating their victory. It makes everything come full circle and puts a nice thematic bow on the whole game. Starting this game and being slightly interested in her character after the donut on the desk, I didn't expect to get to the end and be this invested in helping and redeeming her, but man was it a satisfying payoff. Apart from people online playing the game once, or people that haven't played it at all that consume the game through clips, spamming the same uninformed copy-paste statements that they got from other people, or streamers who spent more time looking at their chat than actually paying attention to the dialogue under every social media post since launch, and the fanbase fucking eating each other, I still ended up really liking my time with the game. It feels like it's been a while since we've really had a game like this, and not just because Telltale's been stuck in development hell and Supermassive's output fucking sucks, but checking out a lot of people's gameplay and being surprised not only at how people compare its mechanics to bigger studio and RPG games like Baldur's Gate, or being disappointed with the romance and comparing it to fucking visual novels, games where you interact with voice-acted renders and don't have fully animated cutscenes that would add a significant amount of work to those routes, but that's what these games are like. I've only played Telltale's Batman and watched a few walkthroughs on some of the others, but even then, I knew what to expect from a game like this. People seem to forget what genre of game they're playing and don't understand that you're not playing as a generic creator character, but as Robert, an actual person in the universe, and are given choices that he would make. He reacts differently from the player, and you have to steer him in a certain direction. It shouldn't come as a surprise that certain inappropriate interactions don't faze him, because he as a person isn't bothered by it and most of the time has options to match the other person's energy. His own sense of humor is shown to be pretty filthy from the beginning, and most importantly, the two love interests the game presents you with are there because they match Robert's character, and he potentially feels attracted to them and doesn't feel that way about any of the other cast. And while there were plenty of moments where the QTEs feel completely meaningless, or a lot of choices not really making, well, any difference and ending up in the same spot most of the time, those problems are par for the course with these games. That doesn't invalidate any of the criticism about them though, and things can absolutely be improved. While there aren't real canon choices, there are several moments in the game that feel more fleshed out or intended for the story that the game is telling. Revealing your identity gives you a really nice heart-to-heart scene with the Z-Team that feels like them actually bonding and becoming a family, which makes more sense for the events of all the later episodes, because if you don't, then the scene is pretty awkward and Chase will blurt out his identity anyway, and it just gets a quick acknowledgement before being brushed aside. Most notably, Flambe trying to kill you if you reveal your identity, processing everything and then rejoining later and staying neutral on the cut because of him being accepted back, in comparison to showing up late with a random joke that feels like they just tried to come up with anything to replace the punch scene, and then having zero reaction to Robert's real identity. Like, he will fly into a rage and try to burn him alive upon finding out he's Mechaman, but if you don't reveal it, he has no scene to process this, and the game just continues on till the end. Dialogue and scenes having to do double duty for Vizzy's romance and non-romance paths, which makes Robert feel a bit passive in them until the last two episodes. Including Vizzy's comment about wanting to be looked at like Blazer, which feels weird at first when you're on her romance path and not on Blazer's, and only gets clarification when you decide to not forgive her. It's been said in interviews that they literally used all their funding to get what is in the game and they couldn't do anymore, so these things are explained by their lack of budget, but that doesn't change the flawed end result we have. Now we're kind of stuck in limbo. The game ended in November, and originally they planned to start work on their next project for Critical Role, but this game kind of blew up and they reached their 3-year goal in 3 months. That is insane for the first title of their new studio. We basically know that a season 2 will come in the future and might be pushed before the Critical Role project, but we just have to sit here twiddling our thumbs until they decide to actually announce it. For season 2, the expectations are a lot higher, which is realistic. Season 1 had plenty of problems with the lack of budget, which shouldn't be as much of an obstacle now. The one big worry I have is with both the developers and the fan base. In the months since launch, and hell, technically while the game was still releasing weekly, the devs tweaked parts of the game based on what was happening, like adding the dialogue for falling for both love interests, making it easier to get the villain ending, or changing it so that Blazer kisses Robert on the car after he kills Shroud, which she initially wouldn't do. It feels like they've made a lot of last minute and panic decisions based on gut reactions or fan outrage, when they should really slowly consider more of their decisions first. Have I mentioned that I fucking hate shipping wars? Because holy shit, I do. And then the Nintendo Switch launch, where they just didn't inform people that the game was censored, which that one's on them. That's just stupid and never should have happened. Seeing this fanbase just devolve in front of my eyes has been an experience, and I'm sitting in my chair with fearful optimism that the developers don't panic adjust or change their story and actually take their time and plan out their next move. And for the love of God, don't add more romance options. People say that they want this because they like a character's aesthetic without actually considering that the ones we have are there because they fit Robert in both personality and theme, and the story would just end up a cluttered mess by unnecessarily adding more people to it, because people don't seem to understand that this is a choose your own adventure game and not a dating sim. Just expand on the two we have and include more stuff with them. Again, they toned down the romance because they thought people weren't going to be interested in it that much. Yeah, wow. If we have to entertain this, just make a cheap visual novel spin-off game or something and just leave it at that. It's really crazy how this game went from barely being on my radar to being one of my favorite things of 2025 and giving me absolute brain rot for months. The story is flawed as hell, the characters are messy, and the comedy can be very hit or miss, but I had a really good time and I just want to see more of just everything, but especially this guy. This guy fucking rules and is easily one of my favorite protagonists I've seen in a while. And if you were wondering, you have no idea how much restraint I have shown by not filling this video with more Breaking Bad jokes than I already did. You cannot fathom it.